Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a topic that affects every single one of us. Whether you're just starting your career, are deep in the middle of it, or are getting close to retirement, we're talking about the German pension insurance system and the urgent reforms being debated to stabilize it for the long term. Stick around until the end, because this topic is complex, but I'll break it down as simply as possible. And if you find this video helpful, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this crucial issue. The German pension system is facing enormous challenges. That's not new, but the urgency is growing every year. The reasons are numerous, but they mainly boil down to our country's demographic shift. We're living longer, having fewer children, and the high birth rate years, the so-called baby boomers, are now gradually entering retirement. This means fewer and fewer working people have to finance more and more pensioners. That's the fundamental problem we're up against. Let me give you a few numbers to illustrate how serious this is. Currently, there are about 2 active workers for every 1 retiree. In the coming years, this ratio will worsen. By 2030, we expect about 4 million more people to be retired than today. At the same time, the number of people in the workforce is shrinking as smaller birth cohorts enter the job market. This puts the pension fund under immense pressure. The options are either contribution rates go up, the pension level goes down, the government injects more money, or some combination of all three. The pension level, the percentage an average retiree receives, relative to an average worker income is currently around 48%. That might not sound terrible, but considering you've paid in your entire life, it's not exactly generous. And forecasts show this level will continue to fall without reforms. This would mean future retirees will receive even less of their former income. At the same time, the pension contribution rate, currently at 18.6% of gross income, is rising. Employees and employers split this contribution equally. So you might be asking, what can actually be done to stabilize the system? This is a hot topic in politics, with several different approaches on the table. A reform package to stabilize the pension system has to consider multiple factors and likely means adjusting several levers at once. Let's look at the main reform proposals currently being discussed. The first, and perhaps most controversial, is raising the retirement age. Currently, the standard retirement age is 67, and it's being gradually increased to that level. However, some experts and politicians are calling for a further increase, possibly to 68 or even 69. The logic is simple. If people work longer, they pay into the pension fund longer and draw benefits for a shorter time. This would relieve the system. But this proposal is highly contentious. Critics argue that not all professions are physically capable of working until 68 or older. Someone in construction or nursing faces very different physical strains than someone in an office. A blanket increase in the retirement age wouldn't account for these differences and could lead to injustice. Another approach is making retirement entry more flexible. Instead of a fixed age, we could have a model where people can decide for themselves when to retire, with corresponding deductions or additions. If you retire early, you get less. If you work longer, you get more. This model already exists to some extent, but could be made even more flexible. For instance, you could allow for partial retirement, where someone works part-time while already drawing a portion of their pension. This would create a smoother transition from work to retirement and also help combat the skills shortage by keeping experienced workers in the labor market longer. Then there's the proposal to raise or completely remove the contribution assessment ceiling. Currently, employees only pay pension contributions up to a certain income limit. In 2024, this limit is about €97,000 in the West and €90,000 in the east of Germany. Anyone earning more doesn't pay pension contributions on the amount above that. The idea is to raise or abolish this ceiling so that very high earners contribute more to the pension fund. This would bring more money into the system in the short term. However, these individuals would then also acquire higher pension entitlements, leading to higher expenditures in the long run. Alternatively, a kind of solidarity contribution could be introduced, where higher incomes pay more without earning additional pension rights. But that would be a systemic shift away from the equivalence principle, which links pension amounts to contributions paid. Another key point is strengthening capital-funded retirement provisions. The German system is mainly based on the pay-as-you-go method, where today's workers' contributions are used directly for today's retirees' pensions. This works well as long as the ratio of contributors to recipients is balanced. But with the current demographics, it's under pressure. A capital-funded system works differently. Money is saved and invested in the capital market to later finance one's own pension. Countries like Sweden have successfully introduced a mixed system, with one part pay-as-you-go and another part capital-funded. Germany could follow this example and introduce a state-organized capital-funded pillar. This would diversify the system and make it less vulnerable to demographic changes. The idea of a sovereign wealth fund for pensions is often discussed in this context. The government would invest money in the capital market and use the returns for the pension system. The Federal Ministry of Finance has already presented plans for this. Such a fund could be started with a capital of several billion euros and grow over decades. The returns would then help finance pension expenditures without further burdening contributors. Critics, however, warn of capital market risks and ask what happens in a major financial crisis. Supporters argue that with a long-term investment strategy over several decades, the opportunities outweigh the risks. An often overlooked but crucial aspect is labor force participation. The more people are employed and paying into the pension fund, the more stable the system. There are several levers to pull here. First, we could further increase the labor participation of women. Although Germany has made progress, many women still work part-time, often due to a lack of childcare options or traditional gender roles. Better work-family balance through more childcare, flexible hours, and a fairer division of care work could lead to more women working full-time and contributing more to the pension fund. Second, we could improve the integration of migrants into the labor market. Germany needs immigration to cushion the demographic shift. If we succeed in quickly getting immigrants into skilled employment, it helps stabilize the pension fund. This requires investment in language training, recognition of foreign qualifications, and integration programs. The labor participation of older workers could also be increased. Many people retire early, even though they are still able to work. Better working conditions, workplace health promotion, and flexible work models could keep more older people in the workforce. Another reform approach concerns mandatory insurance. Currently, self-employed and freelancers are often not insured in the statutory pension system. Many of them do not provide adequately for old age and risk falling into poverty later. Mandatory insurance for all workers, as is common in other countries, would both protect these individuals and broaden the contribution base of the pension insurance. Of course, this would have to take into account that the self-employed often have fluctuating incomes and need a flexible contribution model. Then there's the discussion about the Mutterrente mother's pension and other benefits. The mother's pension recognizes child-rearing periods as pension periods and has been expanded in recent years. This is socially just, but it costs the pension fund a lot of money. Generally, the pension system has many non-endurance-related benefits, meaning benefits not covered by contributions, which should be financed by taxes. A clearer separation between endurance benefits and social benefits could make the system more transparent. Benefits, like the mother's pension or the pension for periods of unemployment, could be fully financed by taxes instead of from insured persons' contributions. Pension policy must also reflect the reality of the modern working world. The classic career path, where someone works full-time for one employer for 40 years, is becoming rarer. Today, many people have fragmented careers with periods of unemployment, training, part-time work, or self-employment. The pension system must be flexible enough to do justice to these biographies as well. A basic pension, as has already been introduced, is a step in this direction. It's meant to prevent people who have worked for a long time but earned little from living in poverty in old age. A tricky issue is also pension taxation. Currently, pensions are being increasingly taxed, while contributions to the pension insurance are becoming more and more tax-deductible. This transition to deferred taxation will be completed by 2040 then. Pensions will be fully taxable, while contributions will be fully deductible. This is fair in principle, but leads to many retirees being surprised when they have to pay taxes. Clearer communication and possibly adjustments to the tax-free allowances could create more fairness here. Internationally, there are many different models of old age provision from which Germany could learn. We've already mentioned the Swedish system with its mix of pay-as-you-go and capital funding. The Netherlands has a very strong system of occupational pensions, where almost all employees save for retirement through their employer in addition to the state pension. Switzerland has a three-pillar model of state pensions: mandatory occupational provision, and voluntary private provision, which is considered very balanced. Germany could adopt elements from these systems and adapt them to its own needs. The issue of intergenerational equity is also important. Any reform must ensure that the burdens are shared fairly between generations. It would be unfair if today's generation of retirees enjoys high pensions with low contributions, while future generations have to pay high contributions for low pensions. At the same time, we must not forget today's retirees, who have often paid in their entire lives and depend on their pension. Balancing these interests is one of the biggest challenges of pension policy. The political implementation of such reforms is extremely difficult. Pensions are a sensitive topic, and no party wants to be accused of taking something away from retirees or overburdening young people. That's why necessary reforms are often postponed or only implemented half-heartedly. What's needed is a broad societal consensus and the courage to make unpopular decisions. Some experts call for a pension commission that works on long-term solutions, independent of day-to-day politics, similar to what exists in other policy areas. Communicating pension reforms is also a challenge. The connections are complex, and it's hard to make them understandable to the general public. Often, emotional arguments and fears dominate the debate instead of factual considerations. That's why it's important for politics, media, and experts to work together to transparently communicate the necessity and the concrete effects of reforms. Everyone should be able to understand what a particular reform means for them personally, whether positive or negative. An aspect that is often forgotten is the prevention of old age poverty. Even the best pension system is useless if people have too little money to live on in old age. Therefore, in addition to reforming the pension system, measures for poverty prevention are needed. This can be done through better wages, support for private pension provision, housing benefits for retirees, or other social benefits. Old age poverty particularly affects women, single parents, the long-term unemployed, and people with interrupted careers. Targeted measures are needed here. Digitalization also offers opportunities for the pension system. Better data collection and networking could make administration more efficient. A digital pension account where everyone can view their entitlements at any time would create more transparency. Counseling could also be improved with digital tools. At the same time, we must ensure that people without access to digital media are not disadvantaged. Finally, I want to take a look at the future. The challenges for the pension system will not get smaller in the coming years, but rather larger. The demographic change is unstoppable, and the baby boomer generation will fully retire in the next 10 to 15 years. This is the critical window in which action must be taken. After that, the situation will relax somewhat as smaller birth cohorts retire. But until then, the system must be able to withstand the strain. A reform package to stabilize the pension system will likely not consist of a single measure, but a combination of different approaches. A moderate increase in the retirement age combined with more flexible models, a strengthening of capital and old age provision through a sovereign wealth fund, a broadening of the contribution base by including all working people, an increase in labor force participation through better work-family balance, and a clearer financing of non-insurance related benefits from taxes. These could be the elements that together stabilize the system. It's crucial that these reforms are socially just and leave no one behind. For most people, the pension is the main source of income in old age, and it is the state's task to ensure that people can live in dignity after a long working life. At the same time, the system must remain affordable so that future generations can also expect a reliable pension. I hope this video has helped you better understand the complex topic of pension reform. It's an issue that concerns us all, and the more people engage with it and join the discussion, the better. What do you think about the various reform proposals? Which measures do you think are sensible, and which are problematic? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear your opinions. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content on important social topics. Until next time, and remember, your retirement planning is important, no matter how old you are right now.